Hello. Good to see you. I am glowing because I am warm. Now, this is a very soft launch because I'm really excited about this theme and I've been wanting to do it for a while, and sometimes we can hype ourselves up. We can say, "Oh my gosh, like I'm overthinking it, so I won't do it." We get our little perfectionist gets into our head, and this is just me. I've been dreaming of this podcast for such a long time, and I'm like, "You know what? Going live is the most honest way for me to share my thoughts." I feel I definitely have some ideas prepared, but ultimately going live feels the most freeing for me. And that's what this entire podcast is about. It's about creative freedom. And creative freedom to me is so important because I feel like we all have this innate gift that we're here to share. We all have this innate gift that we're here to share. And sometimes when we're blocked creatively, we don't end up sharing that gift. And the reason we have that gift is because it's the medicine the world needs. In the same way that plants like a dandelion or the white man's foot, it's called plantain, also known as white man's foot. It helps with like foot wounds. It grows. It was called white man's foot because it came when the settlers came. It because that was medicine that we needed, that was needed for healing wounds and things like that, right? So they're more on paths where maybe jagged rocks are. So the medicine that you need comes from the land in the same way that the medicine, spiritual medicine that we need comes from the people that are born. So it's a very intelligent system. And if a dandelion one day were to say, "I don't want to be a dandelion because there's too many dandelions," we've been missing out on some dandelion medicine and we need it. So you have a specific bloom and blossom to you, which would be what you're here to offer. And it's my passion to make sure everybody does that. And there's a lot of limitations that come in our lives that stop us from sharing our voices and sharing our gifts. And may it be a judgment that happened or something that happened that we were judged for sharing it. And so it created a blockage. We felt like we didn't belong and we didn't share it. And so I am so passionate about people being able to share their voices, and that's what every one of my musicals is about. So in this podcast, I'll be talking about these themes of sharing your voice, expressing your voice, and different ways to connect to expressing your voice. And I'd love to get feedback from other people in the community, as well as tools that we work with and different tools and, puppets and all these fun things. So this is just an introduction to all these ideas. So one thing that's really loud for me is, what are the nourishments that I need to help me engage in creative freedom, right? So say I'm feeling maybe stressed, like in some ways, maybe I'm feeling either financially stressed or like home stressed, like I don't know where, like feeling grounded. Well, it's sometimes hard to create art when you're in like fear. But creating art is actually such a powerful way to regulate your nervous system because it tells you that you're safe. Because when you create art, you're saying, "Hey, like I'm not being chased by like a mountain lion because I'm making art. So I must be safe. I have time to do this very beautiful experience." So it's a really great backdoor to regulating the nervous system. But if I'm having a hard time making art, sometimes I do just need to regulate my nervous system first. And sometimes that looks like going to the beach. Everybody has a different way to regulate their nervous system. Sometimes it's just like a hot cup of tea. One of my favorite ways and quickest ways to regulate my nervous system is very, very simple. So basically what you do is you take your eyes and you look all the way to the left without moving your head. Keep those eyes left until you yawn. And then boom, you've yawned. And then you do that again to the right. Oh, this nod is nodding. You do it to the right. It comes on pretty quick for me. So if you're a performer, you experience a little bit of anxiety, that's a really great tool. Would recommend that. So my journey as a creative person has not been super linear. I've gone through a few different routes. I started with performing. My very first live performance was "Give Me a Little Kiss." Like, "Give me a little kiss. Will ya? Huh? And I'll give it right back to you. And I wore this cute little old-timey dress, very Shirley Temple style. And, the whole audience applauded, and I loved that. I was like, ooh, I could do this again. So I do love a good performance. A lot of voltage. But yeah, I also love crafting, and I would whittle these stones. I would carve these stones when I was a kid, and a lot of my art is, I would always ask for paper every year for Christmas, and I loved walking in circles for hours around the fireplace. The things that I really was drawn to, they kind of created a map for what I'm interested in now. And I love making little characters and telling stories, and I like doing it, and I want to keep doing it, and it seems so clear. So I recently started working with puppets, and puppets are really powerful. Puppets are really powerful because they really help you get over yourself. They really help you get over yourself because you have things that you want to say, but when you're talking with a puppet, I don't know, I feel like it really clears the channel. It really has helped clear my channel, and I just like, it helps people unmask. I find a lot of people let their walls down around puppets. There's an innocence to puppets. There's an honesty to puppets. I really appreciate puppets, so I've been working with them a lot, and it's been really fun. And another thing that's really important for creative freedom is organization. To me, this podcast episode feels like a synopsis of things that I want to go through. So I'm letting this be an honest kind of channel, and then I'll organize myself after. But the thing that I really want is, organization. So I'm a waterfall of creative energy and force. And I can't necessarily drink from a waterfall if I don't have a cup or a container or a vessel or a boundary in which I can contain it. So that's important information for creative folks who don't like boundaries is, when we create a container, it helps with our creative freedom. Having zero containers or zero limits is kind of impossible because we have the limitation of, how many fingers we have, the size of our fingers, the language that we speak, the stories that we experience. All of these are limitations that help us explore, our unique style of expressing ourselves. So this is fun. The limitation of the material I have is helping me choose what kind of bird I'm going to make and how I'm going to make it. And I'm really excited to see the style of my puppets form. So yeah, that's kind of where I am right now. But this whole premise, this whole podcast, this whole inspiration, really the core of it, and the thing I always want to hone back to is how can we use this to help inspire more creative freedom? Because stimmers, we're either going to create or destroy. We have all this energy. What are we going to do with it all? What are we going to make? What are we going to destroy? So, and there's beauty, there's cycles in life, and every creation comes to an end. But yeah, creative freedom is super important. I think in this musical I'm writing about gnomes, creative freedom is sort of this center of wealth. Like when we allow ourselves to just do what feels natural to create, a bird will naturally build a nest. It's just instinctual. Like there's something when you're in silence and in boredom for long enough, there'll be something you just want to do. You'll feel a tug, and giving ourselves enough time to be silent so we can feel a tug. There was a set of extremely creative kids that I had at theater camp one year, and I asked the parents, I was talking to the mom, I said, how are your kids so cool? Why are they so cool? And she said, I believe in boredom. I let my kids get bored. And I thought that was really insightful. She's like, I don't inundate them with stimulation. They just get bored and then they make cool things. And I'm like, you are absolutely right. I think boredom is underrated. And I think we need to stop saving people from boredom. Boredom is a really beautiful place for healing. It's a beautiful place for ideas, creativity, problem solving, reflection. If there's anything to integrate, is allow your creative freedom a little bit of boredom, little neutral time. It does wonders. Yeah. The most creative kids I've seen have experienced boredom. I remember when I was in school, I was homeschooled for most of my childhood, but a little chunk I was homeschooled. I went to school, and I was bored in class, so I would make these tiny eraser people, and I would tell, myself these little stories. I made a little eraser person, like this whole Harry Potter costume, and my pencil was the broomstick, and, I loved making these little characters, and now I make puppets, so it's kind of fun. Yeah, creative freedom. Creative freedom is something that happens very naturally when our nervous systems are at ease. So if there's a main tip that I would have is find ways to regulate the nervous system, whether it's just a slow breath, the eyeball stare technique, just a couple things. So I definitely would love to do an episode specifically on nervous system regulation. So this is fun. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave this for now, but yeah, looking forward to having these conversations and yeah, exploring creative freedom together.